It's amazing how clearly you can see your life once someone else labels it for you. Standing by the window of my tiny apartment, I watched dawn creep slowly across the Boston suburbs, painting the sky with soft strokes of lavender and gold. In the silence, my coffee grew cold in the chipped mug I'd picked up at a thrift shop years ago, a small reflection of my life, functional but easily overlooked. My son Sam stood quietly in front of the mirror, wrestling clumsily with a red tie, frustration furrowing his young brow. "Mom, I can't get it right," he sighed, his voice breaking the quiet morning air. I knelt beside him, gently untangling the knot. My hands moved methodically, years of silent battles making me adept at fixing things, even though I struggled to fix myself. Sam stared at me, sensing more than I realized. "Mom, are you okay?" I smiled softly, brushing back his unruly hair. "Just nervous, honey. Weddings aren't really our thing." Truthfully, weddings terrified me, especially today's. My ex-sister-in-law, Caroline's lavish celebration, would soon place me back into a family I desperately tried to escape. 3 years ago, my husband Michael had walked out, drawn to wealth and status, leaving me behind with nothing but bruised dignity and quiet determination. Yet when Sam had asked, eyes hopeful to see his father again, how could I refuse? The Grand Harborview Hotel was magnificent, glittering chandeliers, polished marble, laughter echoing against grand ceilings. Yet the warmth and elegance only magnified the chill that settled deep inside my chest as we were ushered to our seats. Sam's steps slowed, his gaze fixed on the table setting. I felt my heart sink. A neatly printed card rested on my chair, reading clearly, "Single Mother Waitress," and beside it Sam's spot marked cruelly, "Single Mother's Child." Heat rushed to my face, humiliation twisting sharply in my chest. My eyes darted to the other tables, filled with labels of pride and belonging. Clark family, honored guests. I quickly flipped our cards face down, feeling every eye piercing through my carefully hidden shame. Sam tugged gently at my sleeve, his innocent eyes searching mine. "Mom, why would someone do that?" "It's just a mistake," I whispered softly, forcing a smile I hoped he'd believe. But before I could say more, I heard a familiar voice behind me, calm, polished, and unmistakably cold. "Oh, Jennifer, you made it," Beverly, my former mother-in-law, greeted me. Her eyes skimmed dismissively over Sam, as if he were merely a stain on her perfect day. "I'm surprised you came." Her words struck hard, yet I kept my smile steady, fragile dignity my only armor. "We're family, Beverly. Isn't that why we're all here?" Before she could respond, the music shifted softly, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. Beverly moved away without another glance. I glanced down at Sam, who stood silent and bewildered. As vows were exchanged, each moment felt heavier, reminding me how fragile our bonds had always been. I saw Michael standing beside the groom, poised and successful, looking like someone I once loved deeply. For a heartbeat, our eyes met, regret flickering briefly before his gaze slid away, too quickly, too easily. Dinner arrived, extravagant dishes I could never afford. Sam quietly poked at his plate, visibly uncomfortable, until Beverly stood and tapped her glass. The room hushed instantly, awaiting her speech. Her smile was bright, charming, but it carried a subtle edge I'd learned to dread. "We have a special guest today," she announced smoothly, eyes locking onto mine with cold amusement. "Jennifer, our dear waitress. Perhaps you'd feel more at home serving tonight rather than sitting here." Gasps rippled through the hall. My hands trembled beneath the table, eyes burning with tears I refused to shed. But before I could respond, Sam stood up suddenly beside me. "Stop it," he said, his voice clear and strong, defying the crushing silence. "Sam, please," I whispered desperately, reaching out, but he shook his head, stepping bravely forward. "I have something important to say," his voice echoed through the stunned silence. Small but resolute, he pulled out his phone, pressing play. The sound filled the hall, a cold, clear conversation. Michael and Caroline's voices unmistakably exposed their secret betrayal. My heart stopped. The truth I'd never imagined, laid bare by the bravery of an 8-year-old boy. Caroline's face turned pale, Michael's hands shook visibly, Beverly's arrogance dissolved instantly. The room erupted into chaos, voices mixing in anger, disbelief, betrayal. Yet amid the turmoil, my eyes fixed on Sam standing bravely, his small shoulders squared against the weight of adults' hypocrisy. "Please don't hurt my mom anymore," he whispered into the microphone, calm and clear, his voice trembling only slightly. She doesn't deserve it. In that moment, something broke open inside me. Not just relief or vindication, but painful clarity. All those years spent silently absorbing humiliation, hoping patience would earn respect, had simply taught them to treat me as if I didn't matter. But Sam, my brave little boy, had finally shown me what true strength looked like. That night, after the chaos settled and we'd left behind the shattered fragments of a false family, I sat beside Sam in our tiny kitchen, gently smoothing his hair. "Are you angry, Mom?" he asked hesitantly. "No," I replied softly, holding him tighter. "Just awake. Finally awake." In the weeks that followed, our life didn't magically heal. The wounds were deep and scars remained, but I found a strength I hadn't known existed. I returned to school, sought help, and learned how to say no clearly, firmly, without guilt. Michael tried apologizing, asking to fix things. I refused. Not out of anger, but from self-respect I'd reclaimed. "I forgive you," I told him calmly, "but forgiveness doesn't mean letting you hurt me again." Years later, standing behind the counter as deputy manager of the Maple Diner, watching Sam proudly help younger kids tie their baseball gloves, I finally understood what family really meant. Not blood, not obligation, but choosing each day to cherish, protect, and respect one another. It took losing everything to discover myself. It took humiliation to recognize my worth. But when I did, I reclaimed my life, set firm boundaries, and finally gave Sam the mother he deserved, the mother I deserved too. After the wedding disaster, I found myself back in our modest apartment, the day's events replaying relentlessly in my mind like scenes from a bad movie. Sam was finally asleep, exhausted from the emotional chaos, and I sat alone in the dimly lit living room, wrapped in silence. The ticking clock was a stark reminder of the harsh truths unveiled just hours earlier. Pulling my worn cardigan tighter, I glanced at the faded photograph on our mantelpiece, a smiling picture from happier times. Michael held Sam on his shoulders, their laughter frozen in time. It struck me painfully now how easily photographs lied. I'd always believed family meant unconditional support, even if love faded between partners. But Michael's family had always treated me like an unwanted outsider. Every Christmas dinner, every birthday celebration, I'd quietly endured condescending remarks masked as innocent jokes, subtle insults thinly disguised as casual conversation. Today, however, they'd finally crossed the line they never knew existed. I reached for my phone as it buzzed softly on the coffee table, Michael's name lighting up the screen. My heart raced, a mix of anger, sadness, and a lingering hope for some form of genuine apology. "Hello?" My voice wavered more than I intended. "Jen?" he began hesitantly. "I'm sorry about today. Things got out of hand." "Out of hand?" I laughed bitterly, unable to hold back my pain. "Michael, they humiliated me, us, in front of everyone. Sam heard everything." He sighed heavily, a familiar sound of weariness that used to elicit sympathy from me. Now it only fueled my anger. "I didn't plan any of this," he murmured weakly. "But you know Caroline, she's always been impulsive." "And you stood by," I interrupted sharply, the bitterness in my voice surprising even me. "You watched it all happen and did nothing." He paused, the line filled with a tense silence. I imagined his face, the regret probably fleeting, replaced quickly by the familiar arrogance that always shielded him from accountability. "I'm calling to ask if we can move past this," he finally said, his voice regaining its practiced calm. "For Sam's sake." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. How many times had I swallowed my pride for the so-called benefit of others? How often had I let them treat me like I was invisible? "No, Michael," I said quietly, but firmly. "For Sam's sake, and mine, I can't." Another long pause stretched painfully between us. "Think carefully, Jen. Family is important." "You're right," I replied softly, my voice trembling with determination. "And family doesn't do what yours did today." Ending the call, I stared at the dark screen, heart racing. A rush of anxiety flooded me. Was I selfish for standing up for myself? Had I just cost Sam a chance at a relationship with his father? The weight of my decision pressed down, heavy and uncertain. But then I remembered Sam's courageous stance at the wedding, how bravely he had confronted adults twice his size, defending the mother he loved unconditionally. He'd shown a courage I'd lost sight of long ago. Rising from the couch, I quietly entered Sam's room, watching his peaceful face illuminated by the soft glow of his nightlight. His bravery inspired me, reminding me of something I'd long forgotten, that our worth wasn't defined by others' approval, but by our own respect and dignity. Bending down, I gently kissed Sam's forehead, promising silently that from now on I would never again let him or myself feel small or unworthy. That night, as I laid down to sleep, I felt something shift within me. It wasn't just about protecting Sam anymore, it was about reclaiming myself. My journey had just begun, and though fear lingered at the edges, I finally felt ready to face it head on. Days after the wedding disaster, life at Maple Diner returned to its comforting rhythm: early mornings, clinking plates, and the murmur of quiet conversations. But beneath my practiced smile, I felt my heart bruised and raw. I moved robotically, pouring coffee and clearing tables, as though sleepwalking through a familiar dream. Yet everywhere I went, whispers followed. Customers exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking, their eyes filled with quiet pity or gleaming with cruel curiosity. The community was small, and news traveled fast. My humiliation had become their breakfast gossip. One morning, as I was refilling the coffee pots, I overheard two regulars, older women named Martha and Linda, sitting in their usual booth by the window, heads bent close, voices hushed but audible. "Did you hear what happened at the wedding?" Martha's voice lowered conspiratorially. Linda nodded solemnly, stirring sugar into her coffee. Poor Jennifer. Imagine having your private life exposed like that. I froze, fingers tightening around the handle of the coffee pot, feeling the heat seep through my skin, burning but grounding me. Martha clicked her tongue sympathetically. She never seemed the type to cause trouble, but still. "I heard her son expose the whole scandal," Linda interrupted excitedly, leaning closer. "Can you believe it? An 8-year-old child revealing adult secrets. I wonder if she coached him." The coffee pot clattered loudly against the table as I placed it down sharply, startling both women into silence. Their heads snapped up, eyes widening when they saw me standing there, breathing shakily. "I didn't coach my son," I said quietly but firmly, meeting their startled gazes. "He was braver than most adults I know. Excuse me." Turning away, my cheeks burned fiercely, heart thundering against my ribs. I moved quickly toward the kitchen, desperate for the solitude it promised. Inside, hidden from curious eyes, I leaned against the wall, taking deep, trembling breaths. But the reprieve didn't last. Moments later, my manager, Alice, stepped into the kitchen. Her gentle eyes held concern as she approached cautiously. "Jen, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I lied quickly, brushing stray hair from my face, eyes fixed on the floor tiles. "Just a long morning." Alice hesitated, studying me carefully. "Look, if you need some time off—" "I don't!" I interrupted sharply, fear and pride mingling inside me. Losing shifts wasn't an option. I needed every cent for Sam and myself. "Okay," Alice said softly, raising her hands gently. "But you know I'm here if you want to talk. You're not alone." Her kindness almost broke me. Nodding silently, I returned to work, trying to hold my head up high, even as I felt the weight of every whispered word pressing down on my shoulders. That evening, I picked Sam up from school, hoping desperately for a quiet evening to heal. But as we walked home, I noticed Sam's usually cheerful face shadowed by something heavy. "Sam, is everything all right?" I asked gently, squeezing his small hand. He hesitated, kicking at an invisible rock on the sidewalk. "They were talking about you at school today, Mom." My heart sank, fear tightening in my throat. "Who, honey?" "The other kids," Sam whispered softly, tears shimmering in his eyes. "They said you must have done something bad for Grandma and Dad to treat you like that. Is that true?" My heart shattered, seeing his confusion and hurt. Kneeling down on the sidewalk, I pulled him close, my voice trembling with emotion. "Sam, listen to me. People sometimes talk about things they don't understand. You did nothing wrong, and neither did I. Do you believe me?" He nodded silently, wrapping his small arms tightly around my neck. I could feel his quiet tears soaking into my shirt. The injustice of it all stung deeply, not for myself, but because my child was paying the price for my silence, for my tolerance of mistreatment. In that moment, holding Sam tightly beneath the fading evening light, something shifted within me. The whispers, judgments, and cruelty had finally reached their limit. I understood now that silence would never protect us. Only standing up, speaking clearly, and claiming our dignity could. When we arrived home, determination surged through me, stronger than fear. Sitting down at the kitchen table with Sam, I looked into his innocent eyes, making a promise I intended to keep. Sam, I said firmly, holding his small hand in mine, I won't let anyone hurt us like this again. We're going to fight for ourselves now, okay? He looked at me, his eyes filled with trust and newfound hope. Okay, Mom, he whispered bravely. As night fell quietly around us, I realized the battle ahead was not just about healing our wounds. It was about reclaiming our lives from those who had tried to define our worth for too long. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, feeling a strange clarity I'd rarely known before. It was like finally stepping out of a thick fog. I stood by the stove, making Sam's favorite pancakes, the warm scent of cinnamon filling our tiny kitchen, offering a brief moment of peace. As I poured batter into the pan, my phone vibrated sharply on the countertop, breaking the comforting silence. Glancing at the screen, I saw Caroline's name. My heart skipped a beat. Why would she call me now, after everything that had happened? I hesitated briefly, then answered quietly. Hello? Jennifer, Caroline's voice came through hesitantly, lacking its usual arrogance. Can we talk? I tensed, gripping the spatula tightly. I don't know if there's anything left to say. She sighed, heavy with genuine weariness. Please, it's important. Despite myself, curiosity took hold. Okay, after my shift at the diner, meet me there. She agreed quietly and hung up, leaving me staring at the screen, heart pounding with uncertainty. What could she possibly have to say now? The day dragged by slowly, filled with nerves and speculation. Finally, after my last customer left, I spotted Caroline hesitantly entering the diner, looking oddly small and vulnerable, so different from the poised woman I'd always known. She approached my booth slowly, sliding quietly onto the vinyl seat across from me. Neither of us spoke for a moment, the silence heavy with years of tension. I'm sorry, Caroline finally murmured, eyes fixed nervously on her hands clasped on the table. I know it doesn't change things, but you deserve an apology. My jaw tightened involuntarily, a million words pressing against my lips. Instead, I took a steadying breath, forcing myself to remain calm. Why, Caroline? Why humiliate us like that? She hesitated, meeting my gaze briefly before looking away in shame. I guess I always felt threatened by you. Even after Michael left, you stayed strong, independent, and somehow happy. I was angry because your strength highlighted my insecurities. I wanted to bring you down, but I never imagined it'd go that far. Her honesty surprised me, leaving me momentarily speechless. All these years I'd seen Caroline as cruel, arrogant, but never as insecure or vulnerable. For the first time, I felt a flicker of sympathy, though tempered by lingering caution. That doesn't excuse what you did, I said softly, firmly. You didn't just hurt me, you hurt Sam. Caroline winced visibly, her eyes shimmering with tears. I know, that's why I'm here. Jennifer, please don't let Michael blame everything on me. He's trying to avoid responsibility, saying it was all my idea, but it wasn't. We both know the truth. Her words stung sharply, realization slowly dawning on me. Michael, as usual, was dodging consequences, protecting himself by throwing others under the bus. Suddenly, Caroline's vulnerability made sense. She was here seeking an ally, something I never thought I'd become to her. I don't want revenge, Caroline, I told her honestly, surprising even myself. But I won't cover for Michael either. If he needs to face consequences, then that's on him. Relief visibly washed over her face. Thank you, she whispered shakily. I'm not proud of what I've become. Maybe facing reality is what I need. As Caroline left, her shoulders lighter, mine felt heavier with responsibility. Her unexpected confession had opened a door I hadn't anticipated, one where truth might finally prevail and Michael might finally have to confront his actions. That night, after Sam had fallen asleep, another unexpected call interrupted the silence. This time from Beverly, Michael's mother. Her voice was tight with controlled anger, yet tinged with desperation. Jennifer, how dare you try to ruin my family's reputation? She snapped immediately. My blood simmered beneath my skin, but I kept my voice steady, composed. I didn't ruin anything, Beverly. Your family did that themselves. I'm done taking responsibility for your mistakes. How dare you speak to me like that? She gasped, shock evident in her voice. Because I've finally realized something, I responded calmly but clearly. Respect isn't automatic, it's earned. You lost mine the day you decided humiliating Sam and me was acceptable. She fell silent, stunned by my newfound boldness. For years, I had quietly absorbed her subtle insults, her barely hidden disdain, but no longer. I have nothing left to lose, Beverly, I continued firmly, my voice steady and strong. From now on, the only thing that matters is protecting my son and reclaiming the dignity you've spent years trying to strip from us. You'll regret this, Beverly finally hissed, voice shaking with anger. No, I said clearly, feeling power surge through me. I regret all the times I stayed silent, but standing up for myself and Sam, I'll never regret that. Ending the call, my hands trembled slightly, adrenaline surging through my veins. Speaking out, setting clear boundaries, it was terrifying, yet strangely exhilarating. After years of quiet endurance, my voice finally felt like it mattered. Later, as I checked on Sam sleeping peacefully, I promised myself this newfound courage wasn't temporary. It was time not only to defend myself, but to teach Sam something crucial. His worth, like mine, wasn't negotiable. For the first time in years, I fell asleep feeling truly empowered, aware the hardest battles might still lie ahead, but finally confident enough to face them head on. Weeks passed, and I began adjusting to a life where I no longer apologized for my existence. Every step forward felt uncertain but freeing, like slowly breathing air into lungs that had long been deprived. Yet, beneath this new confidence, doubts occasionally crept in, whispering cruel reminders of past humiliation. One crisp autumn afternoon, just as the leaves began falling softly along the streets of Boston, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. The name on the screen made my heart tighten painfully. Michael. My thumb hovered over the phone, uncertainty clawing at me. After a deep breath, I answered, "Yes, Michael." There was silence, heavy and awkward. Finally, his voice emerged, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Jen, can we talk? Face to face, I mean." I paused, instinctively wary, but curiosity pushed past caution. "Fine. At the cafe near the diner. Tomorrow, noon." When I walked into the cafe the next day, Michael was already seated, nervously stirring his untouched coffee. I took a seat across from him, refusing to meet his eyes directly, tension settling between us like a wall. "You look good, Jen," he began awkwardly, his attempt at small talk grating on my nerves. "Why did you want to meet?" I asked firmly, cutting through the pleasantries. Michael sighed deeply, looking down at his hands clasped on the table. "I wanted to say sorry, in person this time. Not because it's easy or convenient, but because you deserve it." His words felt genuine, yet my heart hardened instinctively, guarding against any false hope. "Michael, if this is about making yourself feel better—" "No," he interrupted quickly, voice sincere yet heavy. "It's about accountability. Caroline told me she talked to you. I realized I've never taken responsibility for my actions, always letting others pay the price." I leaned back slowly, studying his face carefully. For the first time, I saw real regret etched into his features, a vulnerability I'd rarely witnessed. But alongside the sincerity was a bitterness, one I recognized all too well. The bitterness of losing something he hadn't valued until it was gone. "I wish I'd realized what I had when we were still a family," he continued softly. "Instead, I chased things that didn't matter. Now I've lost everything." For a moment, empathy surged unexpectedly within me. I remembered the man I'd fallen in love with years ago, the dreams we'd shared before everything fell apart. But just as quickly, the sting of betrayal resurfaced. "Maybe you needed to lose it all," I finally said, my voice gentle but clear. "Maybe that's what it takes for people like us to finally wake up." He nodded slowly, understanding but clearly saddened. "I guess it's too late now." I met his gaze directly, steady and unwavering. "For us? Yes. But it's not too late for Sam. You can still be a father to him, but only if you genuinely try. No more empty promises." Michael exhaled deeply, absorbing my words. "I'll do better, Jen, for him and for myself." Leaving the cafe, my chest felt lighter, yet complicated emotions lingered. I'd confronted Michael, set boundaries, and reclaimed my power, but the wound still needed healing. True strength, I realized, wasn't about never feeling pain. It was about how you responded to it. That evening, Alice, my manager, called unexpectedly, her voice unusually cheerful. "Jen, can you swing by the diner quickly? I have something important to discuss." Curious, I walked into the diner half an hour later, finding Alice waiting eagerly by the counter, holding an official-looking envelope. "What's going on?" I asked, puzzled. Alice's smile widened as she handed me the envelope. "Congratulations, Jennifer. You're officially promoted. Assistant manager, you deserve this." My heart leapt, disbelief mingling with joy. For years, I'd quietly accepted being overlooked, never daring to believe I was worth more. This promotion was more than just recognition. It was proof that my strength had always been there, even if hidden beneath years of self-doubt. "Thank you," I whispered, voice thick with emotion. Alice hugged me warmly, her voice reassuring. "You've always had this strength in you, Jen. You just needed to see it for yourself." And that night, as I tucked Sam into bed, his bright eyes shone with pride when I shared the news. "Mom, does this mean you're the boss now?" "Sort of," I laughed softly, ruffling his hair. "But more importantly, it means I finally stopped letting others define who I am." He hugged me tight, whispering, "I'm proud of you, Mom." As the room quieted and Sam drifted off, I realized this moment, his pride, my newfound self-worth, was the true victory. No matter what happened next, I was no longer a victim. I had taken control, and in doing so had given Sam something priceless, the courage to believe in himself, just as I finally believed in me. Life has a strange way of testing how strong you've truly become, especially when you think the storm has finally passed. Just as I started to feel grounded, my phone buzzed again late one evening. Caroline's name flashed urgently across the screen, sending a wave of unease through my stomach. I hesitated, debating silently before reluctantly picking up. "Jennifer," her voice trembled immediately, panicked and breathless. "It's Tyler. He's here, at my apartment. Michael took him earlier for the weekend visit, but he's been drinking. They're arguing and I'm scared." My heart seized painfully, fear flooding through me like ice water. Without hesitating, I grabbed my keys and rushed out into the cold night, hands trembling as I drove through the darkened streets. When I arrived at Caroline's apartment, the door was slightly ajar. My pulse quickened as I stepped inside, greeted by raised voices. "Dad, please stop!" Tyler's desperate voice sliced through my heart. Michael stood in the center of the room, his eyes glassy, his movements erratic, a broken bottle at his feet. Tyler stood protectively in front of Caroline, his small frame tense yet defiant. "Jennifer," Michael's voice was slurred, his eyes wild as he turned sharply toward me. "Of course you'd show up, always acting like the hero." Ignoring him, I swiftly moved toward Tyler, who rushed into my embrace, his small body trembling against mine. My eyes filled with fury as I faced Michael, voice shaking yet firm. "I told you, Michael, never again," he sneered bitterly, alcohol evident in his eyes. "You always think you're better than everyone. You turned my son against me." "No," I replied calmly, clutching Tyler protectively. "You did that yourself." Caroline stood silently, her face pale, eyes filled with regret. Her voice shook softly, filled with remorse. "Michael, enough. You're hurting everyone, even yourself." He turned sharply toward his sister, anger flashing dangerously in his eyes. But before he could speak, a sharp knock echoed from the open door. Two uniformed police officers stepped into view, alerted by neighbors. "Is there a problem here?" the taller officer asked firmly, taking in the scene quickly. Michael's defiance melted instantly into panic, his posture shrinking. Tyler clutched me tighter, face hidden against my side. My heart ached painfully, knowing this was something no child should ever witness. Caroline moved forward hesitantly. "Please, just help him. My brother needs help." Michael looked around, finally realizing the depth of his situation. His shoulders slumped, eyes hollow, defeated. Quietly, almost inaudibly, he murmured, "I'm sorry." As the officers gently guided him outside, Caroline turned to me, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Jennifer, I'm so sorry. All these years I thought you were the weak one. Turns out you've been the strongest among us." I studied her face, seeing genuine remorse, maybe for the first time. My anger softened, replaced by a complicated mix of compassion and caution. "Caroline, Michael isn't the only one who needs help. We all need to face our truths, no matter how painful." Caroline nodded quietly, hugging herself tightly, her vulnerability unmistakable. "Thank you for coming," she whispered softly, eyes filled with regret and relief. Driving home that night, Tyler fell asleep against my shoulder, his quiet breathing grounding me amidst the lingering storm of emotions. I glanced at him through the rearview mirror, feeling an overwhelming surge of pride. He had stood up courageously again, never wavering despite the chaos around him. When we finally reached our apartment, I carried Tyler inside, placing him gently into bed. As I watched him sleep peacefully, I felt the ache of what he had endured, the innocence he'd lost tonight. Yet beneath the pain was a profound clarity. I would no longer let toxic relationships define our lives. In the quiet darkness, I took my phone, scrolling to Michael's contact information. Without hesitation, I blocked his number. It wasn't cruelty, but necessary self-protection. This boundary wasn't built from bitterness, but from understanding that my son and I deserved better than the endless chaos others tried to inflict upon us. That night, beneath the soft moonlight filtering through the curtains, I understood that true strength wasn't silent endurance. It was knowing when to stand firm, set clear limits, and finally fully embrace my worth and dignity. And for the first time, despite the uncertainty ahead, I felt genuinely free. Life didn't simply get easier after cutting ties with Michael. It became quieter, clearer, yet filled with its own unique challenges. The whispers around town slowly faded, replaced by gentle nods of respect, quiet acknowledgments of my strength rather than judgment. Still, the emotional scars lingered beneath my carefully rebuilt exterior. Months passed, and with each day I grew stronger, more confident. My promotion at Maple Diner brought new responsibilities, but it also gave me a fresh sense of purpose. Customers who once whispered behind my back now sought out my advice or exchanged warm smiles, gradually becoming allies instead of spectators. But even amid this newfound stability, nights remained difficult. In the silence of my bedroom, doubts crept back in, whispers of insecurity making me wonder if I was strong enough to truly protect Sam, or if someday I might weaken, allowing toxicity back into our lives. Then, unexpectedly, a letter arrived from Beverly. Holding the envelope, my fingers trembled, heart racing anxiously. Her careful handwriting on the envelope felt almost sinister, triggering memories I'd tried to bury. Yet, against my better judgment, I opened it, finding a neatly handwritten note inside. Jennifer, I realize this may come as a shock, but I'm truly sorry. Seeing Tyler speak up for you made me see something I've ignored too long. My actions have deeply harmed you both. I hope someday you'll forgive me. Beverly. I stared at the paper, rereading each word several times. My hands trembled, not from anger, but from uncertainty. Could people like Beverly truly change, or was this another manipulation? The next morning, I shared the letter with Sam, watching carefully for his reaction. His young face turned serious as he read, processing every word carefully. Mom, he asked softly, does forgiveness mean we let them back into our lives? I took his small hand in mine, carefully choosing my words. Forgiveness means we let go of our anger and pain so we can heal. But letting people back into our lives is different. It requires trust, and trust must be earned. Sam nodded thoughtfully, absorbing my words with maturity beyond his years. Maybe someday we can trust them again, Mom, but only if they show they've changed. His words echoed within me, filling me with quiet pride. My 8-year-old had understood something profound that took me decades to grasp clearly. Together, we'd learned the importance of boundaries and the courage it took to uphold them, even against people who claimed to love us. Days turned into weeks, and while Beverly continued sending small, thoughtful messages, I maintained clear but gentle boundaries. It felt empowering to decide for myself how close she could come, rather than passively enduring her whims as I had before. One afternoon, Sam and I visited the park near our apartment, laughing as we tossed a baseball back and forth beneath a golden, sunlit sky. His laughter echoed through the crisp autumn air, filling me with a sense of peace I'd missed for far too long. Mom, can you promise something? Sam asked, pausing to look at me seriously. Of course, honey, I replied softly, meeting his gaze. Promise you'll never let anyone treat you badly again, he said firmly, eyes shining with sincerity. Because when you're happy, I'm happy too. Tears stung my eyes as I nodded, pulling him close. I promise, Sam, never again. That promise, simple yet profound, became my guiding star. It was the first time I genuinely understood the deep connection between my self-worth and Sam's happiness. My journey wasn't just about protecting him, it was also about showing him how to respect and protect himself. In that moment, beneath the warmth of the fading sun, I knew we had both grown stronger, not despite our wounds, but because we chose to heal from them together. Time moved forward quietly, stitching together pieces of our fractured lives with gentle patience. Each day brought small victories, moments when laughter filled our apartment, when silence felt peaceful rather than oppressive. Yet, beneath this newfound stability, I understood that healing wasn't linear. It was slow, messy, but ultimately empowering. On the anniversary of Caroline's disastrous wedding, Alice asked if I'd share my story at a local support group for single parents. Nervous but determined, I stood before a small crowd gathered in the warmly lit community center, heart pounding. I began speaking, my voice shaking slightly, yet strengthening with each word. I told them of the humiliation I endured, the boundaries I'd learned to set, the painful decisions I'd made, not from a place of bitterness, but from quiet strength. As I shared my journey, the room grew silent, faces reflecting understanding, empathy, and shared resilience. Afterward, a woman named Rachel approached me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Jennifer, hearing your story made me realize I'm not alone. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to reclaim my dignity." Her words touched me deeply, reaffirming my choice to stand firmly for myself and Sam, and reminding me of the quiet power hidden within vulnerability and honesty. One evening, just as I closed up at the diner, Caroline appeared unexpectedly at the door. Her appearance startled me. She looked softer, kinder, the arrogance I'd always associated with her now replaced by quiet humility. "Jennifer," she spoke gently, cautious but sincere. "I'm leaving town. I got a job offer elsewhere. I just wanted to thank you." "For what?" I asked softly, puzzled. "For teaching me something no one else could," Caroline replied, smiling faintly. "That strength isn't about how much power or control we have over others. It's about respecting ourselves enough to stop harming those around us." A quiet moment passed between us, filled not with awkwardness but genuine understanding. As she turned to leave, I realized forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant recognizing someone else's humanity and allowing them space to grow. A few months later, Sam and I sat at our favorite diner booth, celebrating his birthday with towering stacks of pancakes and cheerful laughter. As I watched his eyes sparkle, heart full of joy, my phone buzzed gently on the table, a simple message from Beverly. "I understand your boundaries, Jennifer. If someday you're ready, I'd love to see Sam. Until then, I respect your wishes." Reading it, I felt neither anger nor fear, only peace. I had finally mastered setting clear boundaries, protecting the most precious things in my life, myself and my son. Later that night, as Sam drifted to sleep, I quietly sat beside his bed, watching his peaceful breathing. I reflected on everything we'd endured, every painful moment, every courageous step forward, and realized how far we'd come. We weren't perfect, our story wasn't finished. But I'd finally discovered true strength, the courage to set limits, to heal, and to show my son how to do the same. The path ahead remained uncertain, yet one thing was clear. We'd no longer live defined by others' expectations, but by our own truth, resilience, and dignity. Gently kissing Sam's forehead, I whispered softly, more to myself than to him, "We did it, Sam. We're finally free." And as I turned out the light, feeling genuine hope bloom within me, I knew that our imperfect yet beautifully authentic lives had only just begun.